In a newly released analysis by the COVID States Project, 7 out of 10 people failed to articulate what the critical race theory is. That's 70%. The critical race theory is an interdisciplinary academic field devoted to analyzing how social, political, laws, and media shape conceptions about race and ethnicity. I want to pursue my undergraduate degree in political science, and in discovering this passion, I have devoted my time in high school to learning about how the American government system works and the history. And in doing so, I stumbled upon the critical race theory and was a little surprised that I had to go seek this out myself, and I actually was not taught this right now in high school. The critical race theory should be taught in high schools because our current curriculum, it lacks depth, and critical race theory can serve as a framework for critical thinking, and with it, our schools will cultivate awareness. So why do we need the critical race theory in schools? We need it because, like I said before, our current curriculum lacks depth. Oftentimes in history classes, teachers like to gloss over racism, or they briefly mention the most famous event, which is Brown versus Board of Education, and they just leave it at that and they don't dig deeper. This is an issue because to move forward in the future and to make our world better, we also need to be able to understand the past. And many times kids don't understand the past and they don't know what's going on. And with critical race theories being implemented into our high schools, this will allow teachers to dig deeper into the topic of racism and systemic inequality. Critical race theory also equips students to think critically. It allows them to look at things in a different lens rather than the one that we are always portrayed. It also can dismantle misunderstandings about race, because oftentimes I've had conversations with my peers and they say something, I'm like, that's not entirely correct, where did you get this from? And 9 times out of 10, they did not hear it in school, which is concerning because you should be learning about these things in school, in history classes, not from biased viewpoints or, viewpoints that only appeal to a certain audience. So, how can the critical race theory fix the lack of depth in our curriculum? We can integrate it into existing subjects such as history, and teachers can dig deeper into racism and what it was about and how America essentially is basically everything was founded on systemic inequality and racism. This will help with the curriculum because then teachers will be able to explain to students just exactly what our government is built upon. And when you know the history of something, you can understand it, you can teach others, and it can help children be less ignorant, and because when you know better, you do better. Educated students become socially responsible adults. This group of teenagers currently is about to be our future doctors, our future lawyers, our future nurses, our future policemen. They're essentially our future. I would want the children of my future to be in the know about everything in American history. Not just what I want them to know, the good, but they also need to understand the bad. Because there is nothing wrong with admitting to the fact that bad things have happened in America to underprivileged people, and privileged people have benefited off these bad things that have happened. There's simply nothing wrong with that issue. Also, the critical race theory can help dismantle ignorance. In an article by Carter Mudgett, he interviewed a University of Florida professor who wants to remain anonymous, and he said that these conversations, they do not preach hate, but they preach understanding. Most of the time when people do not understand, they often turn to ignorance because they don't understand, they don't want to know. But like I said, when you know better, you do better. And by dismantling this ignorance, we can also dismantle the misconceptions of race. We can help people treat others with respect and just be able to be empathetic. So, let's try and visualize what schools would look like with critical race theory. So I have 4 images behind me with 4 very important words: inclusivity, awareness, diversity, and equality. This is what the critical race theory essentially aims to achieve people to understand. With the critical race theory, students will feel seen, heard, and valued in classrooms, because when you can comfortably talk about the bad things that have happened, it makes people feel more comfortable coming forward and asking questions and be willing to understand. Also, there will be a reduction in bias and microaggressions, because like I said, most of the time people act certain ways because they do not know. So certain microaggressions that people experience, it might not be because these people are doing it on purpose, but they also might not realize well, what I'm doing is wrong. It might be something that's subconscious. And learning about something like critical race theory and implementing this into our curriculum will provide this awareness. It'll also foster diversity and take a step forward towards equality because, like I said, if they understand, then they can go out and teach others about this so that other people are aware. So, as I come to a close, let's look at what's at stake. The lack of comprehensive, honest education in high schools is not just an academic issue, but a social one. When we fail to teach students the truth, we fail to prepare them for the world. The critical race theory should be implemented into our schools because our current curriculum lacks depth, and we should be integrating it into existing subjects. And by doing this, students will feel much more comfortable in school and will feel seen and heard about the issues that they've experienced in the past. So, what can you do? Advocate, stand up, advocate for inclusive curricular. If we want to raise a generation that can build a better, fairer world, then we have to start by giving them the truth and the whole truth. And this begins in the classroom. Because our unity is our strength, but our diversity is our power.